Hi, Britt here, and welcome to another episode of On the Vice, brought to you by Hackles and Fly Fishing. Today we're going to be tying a trout pattern that I dearly love fishing on our local rivers. It's probably my all-time favorite. You could ask Brian, and he would say that as well. He just knows that it's my favorite. It is called a Beetle Bug Palmer. It is a Dave Hughes pattern. However, it's not a wet fly. Most people think of Dave Hughes, they think of wet flies, but this is actually a dry fly. So with that, let's get going. Switch cameras here. And also, I'd just like to thank everybody for tuning in to our weekly videos. We appreciate the time you spend watching them and commenting. If you ever have anything specific you'd like to see, just let us know. We'd be more than happy to work something up for you on it. So this is the pattern. So for the hook, we're going to be using just dry fly hook. I'm using a dry long just because I like having a little bit extra length on it, but just a standard dry fly hook would suffice. Remember, if you're using the Norvise system, you want to make sure that hook shank is coming straight off of your jaws. That way you can maximize your rotary spinning aspect of your vise. This is actually just off kilter just a hair, so I'm going to readjust it. And there we go, so it spins right on center. For thread, I am just using Semperfli Classic Waxed A-Dot in white. Just going to get that thread started. Trim out our tag end. I'm just going to lay down a layer of thread. Just gives us something for our materials to grab onto. For the tail, I'm using moose body hair. And on these, I like to fish these through quite fast, rapidy type water, and also pocket water. So I'm going to use a pretty healthy chunk of hair for this. This will help support it in the water, but we'll also have quite a bit of hackle. So I'm going to go through and just pull out all those fuzzies, any short fibers. Put that in our hair stacker. There we have it. So we're going to take it, and we want it to be about the length of the hook shank, maybe just a smidge shorter since we're using a slightly longer hook. I'm going to go ahead and take the wraps, and then I'm going to go just to the rear and take a few gathering wraps, so it kind of holds those fibers together so they don't flare out quite as much. There we go. We'll trim those butt ends off, and I want to make sure to trim those at a bit of an angle. So we're going to end up kind of marrying the wing into that. That way we have a nice, smooth body taper. Well, actually, it won't be tapered as much. It'll just be the back end kind of going into the front end. For the wing, I am using Kid Goat. A lot of times you'll see people using calf body hair. Real similar texture and slippery factor, but this is a little bit longer generally, so it's a little bit easier to work with. I got this from the North Shore Fly Shop up in Balmoral, New Brunswick, from our friend Terry. I'm going to cut out a healthy chunk of this. And you could also use calf tail if you wanted more of a, scragglier wing. So again, I have a pretty good chunk there. I'm going to pull out all that under fur, any of the shorter fibers. And then we'll put that in our hair stacker. Got those tips nice and aligned. And pull those out. I want this to be, we're just going to go with the length of the shank of the hook on this because we've got a little bit of extra length there. So, a bit of a measurement. Advance your thread to about the 2/3 point or just in front of. I like to take one wrap around just that bundle of hair, hold that onto the hook shank, and then take a wrap around the hook shank, and that just keeps it, all of it right on top of the hook shank. So spin around that way. We'll take that, pull those butt ends up, and we'll trim those at an angle. And so you can see that just kind of melts those two together. Just tidy that all up. And back up to that clump of hair, pull it up. We're going to build a thread dam in front of that. It helps if you kind of wrap it at an angle, so go up and then back. And that really helps that thread dam build up right tight against that wing. If you want, you can, just to keep it tidy, you can take one wrap just around that clump of hair as well, and it'll kind of just bring everything together for you. And then the next thing we need to do is divide those wings. So we want them to go out like a wolf style. So I'm going to take and tilt the vise towards me so I can see it easier. And I'm just going to get it to where I think it's about even. It's not exact, we can always cut a couple fibers out. And then you just take figure 8 wraps between the two. Next, we'll post those. So I find it easiest if I turn the vise away from me just a hair. And you just have to kind of get a feel for how much tension. You can also turn it towards you if that's easier. It might be different for each person, what works best. And so we've got those now divided. Like I said, that far one looks like there's a little bit more in it than the near one. So we have scissors for a reason, so we're just going to go ahead and trim a few of those out. No big deal. Now we're going to take our thread all the way to the rear again. For the back part of this fly, we're using a hackle one size smaller than the actual hook. So we're going to be using a hackle size for a 14. We're going to pull those fibers forward, strip off the first little bit. You want to leave a little bit empty there just so that first wrap is nice and tidy and we don't have any going to the rear on us. For dubbing, we're just using some red Semperfli sparkle dubbing. Any red dubbing will do. It's interesting to me that we use red dubbing on this fly, but once it's done, it'll actually look more orange, which is one reason why I think it does really well on our rivers in the fall and the bigger sizes, is we have a lot of October caddis. And so it really, I think, that color just kind of, they start really keying in on that color in the fall on our rivers. Okay. So wrap that up just to the rear behind those wings. I'm going to throw a half hitch in. Bring my thread over to my thread post. Now the first wrap I like to take by hand, and that's just to make sure it doesn't twist or do anything weird on me. After that, we can use our vise to wrap that feather forward. Again, like I said, this is a very heavily hackled fly, and it does fish very well in fast water, which we have a lot of here in central Idaho. So for the front of it, I'm just using another brown hackle, but it's appropriately sized to the hook, so it's sized as a 12. I like to have them to where the front hackle, or the back hackle kind of goes forward and the front hackle goes backwards, So they do kind of run into each other a bit. I just think it looks nicer overall. Tie that in. Go ahead and put that half hitch in. Bring our thread over to our thread post. Again, see, now this one wants to twist on me. So you can, if you have a feather that wants to twist, you can kind of manhandle it into submission. And now that I've got it wrapped, going the way I want it, I can use that rotary function. And then we're just going to tie that off there at the front. Also, I like to kind of dog-leg it and then wrap back over it. And that allows it to make sure it's not going to pull out on you. If you have any hackles there around the eye, you can certainly trim those out. And then I like to have a black head on it. I use the white thread just so the posts, it blends in on the posts better. But the head, I just use a Sharpie and color my thread. You could leave it white if you wanted, or make it any color in the world you'd like, as long as you have a marker for it. Go in. I'm just going to put a few turn bit finish on this. And then I like to put just a light coat of head cement on it. I'm using Solar Lap head cement. You can use anything you'd like, of course. It just helps hold it in when there's teethy trout eating on it. And if you have any stray fibers, you can trim them out if you want. And there we have it. So that is a Beetle Bug Palmer. We tied this in a size 12, but you can certainly tie it smaller. Size 12 seems to do well here, especially in the fall, just because I think they really think it's probably an October caddis. So with that, thanks for joining us for another episode of On the Vice. Please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to hear feedback, so please drop a comment. If you have any questions or anything like that, let us know. And again, we just really appreciate you taking the time to join us on our weekly videos. With that, have a good evening. Good night.